My name is Israel, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for a company called Kitron. Today I'm going to be talking about innovation, specifically technical innovation. I'm going to talk about some general market trends, some challenges that we see, and how Kitron is trying to weather this sort of mini storm. I know that there's going to be a session of questions at the end. Nevertheless, if somebody has a very, very urgent question to make, feel free to interrupt. I don't mind. So without any further ado, I will start by talking a little bit. This is the sort of publicity part of the presentation, but it's also a way to try to introduce what I'm going to be talking about, to try to put things into context. Kitron is what's called an EMS company. That EMS stands for Electronic Manufacturing Services Company. What that means is that we are the manufacturer for some of the most important brands in the world. We don't have our own products. We don't have our own design. We have to take sometimes a full design, sometimes just a napkin with form, fit, and function, and we need to deliver something from there. And then somebody's going to put their stickers and sell it out in the world. We have manufacturing facilities around the world. In China, close to Shanghai. In Europe, we have 3 centers. In Lithuania, in Sweden, in Norway, we have a center in US, close to Pittsburgh. And we also have a sales support and technical support facility in Germany, close to Stuttgart. What is it that we do? Basically the whole range, from designing the product to industrialize it, selecting suppliers, managing those suppliers, manufacturing the product, distribute it. We also work as a logistic hub for our customers. And ultimately, we deal with the end of life, with repairs, with overhauls, with parts that are started to get very difficult to find in the market. So it's basically the whole range. Who do we work with, and in which areas do we work with? Primary sectors: defense and aerospace, energy, telecom, industry, medical devices, and offshore. Anybody knows what a printed circuit board is? Yeah, more or less. This green thing that it's inside of the computers, full of components. So that's basically what we do. That's the beginning, a PCBA, a printed circuit board assembly. So we manufacture these things, sometimes put it into a high-level assembly, and we do the finished product. So I'm pretty sure that you recognize some of these companies. Some of them, we are not allowed to use their names for safety and security reasons, because they are in the aerospace domain. So we manufacture, for example, let's call it the motherboard for the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter. We're the only company in Northern Europe working on electronics for that program. We manufacture full boxes like ultrasound machines for your heart, for General Electric. So we finish the whole product. It's a rather largish, you could call it a fridge, that gets stuck into a box, and it's sent into a hub and ultimately into a hospital. So hopefully you don't have to go and get your heart checked. But if you do, and the brand of the product is GE, then we put it together. Why am I mentioning this? Because we don't work with consumer electronics. We don't do things like this. We don't do microwave ovens. We don't do DVD players. That's not our business. We work with high-end, very specific, high-demand customers and products. If this breaks, I go back to probably Logitech and tell them, hey, guys, this doesn't work, and I have another one. And you'll have the annoyance of not being able to present today. But we manufacture, for example, a ventilator machine that will keep you breathing when you're in coma, when you cannot breathe on your own, for a customer called Makea. If that thing breaks, then somebody's going to lose their lives. We manufacture the guiding systems for some of the missiles for Saab. You want to make sure that that goes into the right place. This baby, this F-35, I mean, it's a rather expensive piece of kit. You cannot have the fighter pilot in the middle of a dogfight saying, hey, time out. The missile doesn't go, so I'm going to have to take a break. I'm going to go down, get it fixed, and come back up, right? So I'm just trying to put things into context, because the business and the level of innovation is very different depending on which market you are in. Innovation. I tried to look for a good definition of what that means. And I like this one. It's a better solution to meet a new requirement. Okay? That sounds like pretty straight up. How is this really happening? When we talk about innovation, it's a very generic thing. So I was looking for a good example, trying to keep you guys entertained. So I started looking at what are the predictions for 2025. There are some market studies, some analyses made by the European Union, the United Nations, and there's some very interesting things. Humans 2.0, the possibility to hack your own body. My legs are sort of weak, so I'm going to replace them for something else. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, right away and everybody's going to start chopping their own limbs. But the technology will allow for it. Brain uploading. Imagine that you're going to go for surgery and you want to make sure that you have a backup of your brain the same way that you have a backup of your telephone. Wouldn't that be brilliant? Mixed reality. The layers of augmentation that we see happening now is taking it to a point that in not too long, it's going to be challenging to distinguish between this virtual reality and the one that we consider today normal reality. And I know that these things might sound a little bit outlandish, but I want you to think about the predictions that some of these great thinkers, the guys that were considered to be science fiction writers, Clarke, Asimov, they made predictions in the 50s and 60s of how the future was going to look like. And I can promise you, I was reading them, and many of the things that they predicted have actually happening. But I'm pretty sure that 50 years ago, these guys were like, these guys are absolutely bananas. They're crazy. So I wanted to talk about two things. I wanted to talk about innovation, but I also want to talk about the speed at which this innovation is taking place. Because to me, that's the number two factor. Innovation has been going on forever. Okay, we talk about this industry 4.0, moving from, steam and water power to what we have now, cyber systems. But how fast is this happening now? So I thought, what would be a good example to explain better how that speed of innovation is taking place? So I thought, let's look for something, let's look for products, and let's look at how long it took for these products to reach an audience of 50 million potential consumers, right? Everybody still with me? Yeah? All right. It took the radio 38 years to reach a market audience of 50 million people. 38 years. Let's move to the next thing. The radio. Only 13 years. What do you think I'm going to show next? Anybody wants to make a guess? Almost there. Internet. 4 years, 50 million people. Boom. The iPod. 3 years. Facebook, 2 years. From 38 years to 2 years. So it's not only the innovation, it's the speed of the innovation. Okay, all this fine and good, but why is this important? Well, it's important because it's changing the way we do business, it's affecting your companies, it's affecting my company. Really? Is it? 50% of the Fortune 500 companies in 2000 are no longer with us. And I know that we can all remember some examples. You remember the Polaroid cameras? I remember they were pretty cool. The CEO and the founder of these Polaroid cameras said, at some point, every citizen in the world will have their picture taken with one of my cameras. Where's Polaroid now? It's gone. You know one amazing fun fact? They had one of the first digital cameras. They just thought, this is not it. And they discarded it. Talking about, decision making. 60% of these Fortune 500 companies are going to be facing challenges from other companies that do not even exist yet. And 70% will have their business model fundamentally change in the next 5 years. So we have innovation, we have the speed of innovation, and we have how that is changing the way we conduct business. And that I still think that it feels a little bit, generic. So I thought, let's try to look for an example that I think better explain what I'm talking about. Can anybody recognize this quote? We're talking about innovation. You have to start with the customer experience and walk backwards. What can we provide to our customers? What can we do for them that will really... Anybody? Yes, sir. Stick jobs. All right, again, quite generic. Let's take one specific example. iPod, many different shapes, sizes, colors. Let's just take this thing. Did you know that between 2006 and 2014, it's about 370 million devices sold? That gives you, depending on prices, a revenue of about $25 billion in hardware. Only the hardware. What did this guy do with this business? Converted it into an icon. You take a $25 billion business and turn it into an icon on your mobile phone. Why? Because we have to apply new solutions to new problems. Because that's what the customer wants. What is the experience that we want to have? So let's try to be a little bit interactive here. Who has a car? Who's bought a car? Raise your hand, please. Don't be shy. You have a car. Okay. So when you were thinking about buying your car, what was important for you? What was your decision-making point? What are the things, the characteristics in the car that you were looking at to decide which one you were buying?
Engine.
The engine. Speed, safety, fun. Sound. Good. Somebody mentioned price. It's always, everybody gets very shy about it. It's like, come on, seriously. When you were buying the car, you were looking at the price too, right? So, anybody has bought a BMW? Yeah? All right. Anybody has Audi? Yeah? Right. Let me make a question. Do you care about how many financial controllers BMW has? Is that important for you? Was that a factor when you chose the car? No. Let me be a little bit more dramatic here. Did you care about how many tests were performed in the car?
Yes. Somehow yes.
Let me ask you, did you care about the number of tests? Or did you care about the car, working every time you put the key in the ignition and turn it and not having to go into the shop for the next 3 years? What was important for you?
The second one.
The latter. So we really need to understand what's driving our customers to be able to offer the next big thing. And if we don't do that, we might be addressing the wrong thing. And you know where Polaroid went. So I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just trying to make you think, hey, there's something else in here. What is really value added is whatever these guys are willing to pay for. If they're not willing to pay for my consultants, if they're not willing to pay for my accountant, it's a necessary evil, but I should be thinking about something else, right? But this kind of change, to change the culture of the company, to change the way we conduct our business, it's very easy to say it in a presentation. It's relatively easy to have the CEO standing in front of a big podium with a big WebEx and say, we are going to change the culture of the company. Great. But what about the 4 monkeys and the ladder? Have you ever heard about the 4 monkeys and the ladder? No? I think if anything out of this presentation, that's going to be what you're going to remember, the 4 monkeys and the ladder. So let me show you what the 4 monkeys and the ladder is.
Scientists placed 4 monkeys in a room with a stepladder upon which there was a bunch of bananas. Whenever a monkey went to climb the ladder, the other monkeys in the room were sprayed with cold water. After a while, each time a monkey went for the bananas, the others would attack it to prevent it from doing so. The monkeys learnt to never climb the ladder. But then, one of the monkeys was removed, and a new monkey wearing a raincoat was introduced. Naturally, this monkey went for the bananas, and it was customarily attacked and prevented from doing so by the others. This new monkey learnt not to climb the ladder. So when another monkey was substituted in and made for the bananas, all the others attacked it, including the one in the raincoat, despite the fact that it had never been sprayed with cold water. A third monkey was substituted in, and then a fourth final monkey. And still, whenever a monkey tried to climb the ladder, the others would prevent it from doing so, even though none of them had ever been sprayed with the cold water. When asked why this was, one monkey said, "That's just the way it is."
I see some smiling faces in the audience. So I'm pretty sure that you can recognize a little bit of that behavior in your own companies. I have to say, I recognize it in mine. So it takes quite a bit of push to be able to get over the 4 monkeys and the ladder. So I'm going to use the end of this presentation to tell you specifically what we as a company have decided to do to try to innovate. And please understand the challenge that we are facing. We don't design our own products, right? So when it comes to innovation, what is it that we can innovate? We can innovate in the way these products are put together. And believe it or not, it's rather challenging. So rather than using a lot of words, I'm going to try to show you again a short video. Unfortunately, it's not going to be as funny as the 4 monkey and the ladder, but I hope it will keep you entertained for another 3 minutes. In 2015, we looked very hard at what is it that we were trying to achieve, and we thought we need to have some building blocks in here. So we started to work and develop our additive manufacturing capabilities, 3D printing. We work on automation and robotics. We work on developing our proprietary technology for testing, because that is very important in the kind of products that we manufacture. We work with virtual simulation, and then we start working with augmented reality. This is my pet project, so I'll be telling you a little bit more about this. And in 2017, we thought, okay, we need to add more stuff here because the innovation is happening so fast that the things that we thought in 2015 are still relevant, but we need to add more. And then we added e-commerce, autonomous technology, and design of very specific products. So let me leave you with this 3 minutes video. Please stay awake, and then we'll finish, okay?
With a workforce 1,350 strong, Kitron is one of the leading electronic manufacturing services suppliers in Scandinavia. Over the last 3 years, Kitron has invested heavily in our European facilities. Now that this investment phase is over, we are going to shift our focus towards technological innovation to meet the ever-growing requirements of time-to-market, flexibility, cost, and quality. Kitron has developed a roadmap to meet these requirements. This roadmap includes automation, simulation, and augmented reality. Additive manufacturing, or 3D printing, provides us with a powerful tool to help our customers reduce their time to market and their development costs.
When additive manufacturing improves its speed and cost, it will replace traditional manufacturing. This is going to happen very soon.
Kitron has invested in additive manufacturing technology and competence. Our team of mechanical and automation engineers can support our customers with the development of their products to make them easier to manufacture. Being able to adequately test the products we manufacture is critical. When we talk about defense or medical products, there is no room for error. Kitron has developed a proprietary test platform called SATS, Standard Automated Test System. SATS provides an answer to several of our customers' needs. First of all, it reduces the investment cost. Second, it reduces risks, thanks to redundancies. SATS is used across all sites by more than 25 customers. Last but not least, it makes it easier to transfer products from one site to another within Kitron. Over the last years, Kitron has been implementing an automation with common sense. We have invested in off-the-shelf solutions, like our auto store system, which has fully automated our warehouse.
Here we store more than 30 million parts. Having an automated system has made our life easier.
But we have also created our own equipment, like machines to cut out PCB boards from panels. What we are trying to reach at Kitron is an optimal combination of humans and machines that will support us with our growth while further improving our competitiveness. In similar fashion to 3D printing, we want to use virtual simulation to identify opportunities for improvement in the early stages of the process. Kitron's plan is that before we build a new product, we will first create and optimize its digital twin using a software model, so our process engineers can critically examine it and give feedback to adapt the product to a cost and time-effective production. Thanks to augmented reality, we can have virtual objects shown attached to real assemblies in a way that conveys how each part is to be assembled or disassembled. The whole point is to make instructions clearer and information easier to understand, so efficiency can be improved. We believe that augmented reality will be an asset, particularly when our customers require a sudden ramp-up in production. We believe that technical innovation is the path to enhance Kitron's capabilities and increase the range of services we can provide to our customers.
All right. So again, just let's take a couple of them to illustrate the point, because I've been in some of these events before, and one of the things that in a way I miss is, yeah, you tell us about very generic things, but what I was interested mostly is how have you solved these problems? That's what I'm interested in. I want to learn, if possible, what a smart thing have you done that I might be able to replicate. So when it comes to robotics, one of the challenges that we are facing, and I don't know about your companies, but it might be a similar case, is the level of automation that we can have. If we take the largest company in our industry is Foxconn. They are the ones that manufacture the products for Apple. The CEO of Foxconn said, I could replace every one of my shop floor employees with a robot. I'm not doing it because it's not cost effective. All right? They can do that because they're chunking millions of the same thing all the time. In my company, I don't know yours, but we don't make hundreds of thousands of anything. We make hundreds and hopefully some thousands. So we cannot fully automate lines. We have to automate processes. Ideally, this process will be common across many products. But just to give you an idea, we do literally hundreds of different products every week. And they can go from, seismic oil detection equipment to grown-up, PlayStations that control guns on the top of a tank. Completely different things. So for us, it is critical to be able to find what's common and try to automate that. What we have decided to do is to go for some very specific technology in robots that allow us to have in the same workbench a robot and a human. Personally, I've been traveling quite a bit and visited a few factories, and I'm used to have these massive robots inside a glass box to make sure that they were not hurting humans. But technology is advancing so much that you can now combine both in the same workbench without being worried about this machine going crazy and hurting your employee. And that gives us really a competitive edge. It's an advantage because some of these tedious tasks, repetitive tasks, can be replaced with a robot. And guess what? They don't mind working 3 shifts. And they're not unionized, at least to my knowledge. Not yet. Not yet. The other thing that we have started working on is e-commerce. We are a manufacturing company, but we offer some services beyond manufacturing that can and are being sold through internet. Things such as, I don't know how familiar you are with these terms, but some of the components become obsolete. So before you start finishing your design, in some cases, the components that you chose are no longer available in the market. Let's take the example of the contract that we have, for example, with Lockheed Martin. It's a contract for the next 25 years. What's the likelihood that these components will be available 25 years from now? Basically. Right? So you have to do quite a bit of work before you finish the design to make sure that the design will not be obsolete 2 years from now. The interesting thing that when it comes to IT and e-commerce and anything that has to do with internet is the very big difference of people that you do business with. You have people who was born in internet and people who still struggle working with it. So to have something that will reach everybody is quite challenging. The last thing that I wanted to talk to you is about augmented reality. Everybody knows what augmented reality is. Don't be shy and say, no, I don't. Okay, I'm going to assume that some people here is not so familiar with it. Anybody watches football on TV? Now I know that the answer is yes, so raise your hand. Do you watch football on TV? Yes. Sometimes is this question, is it offside or not? And suddenly you get this, yellow line on the top of the grass that shows if you were ahead or not of it. That is augmented reality. It's adding some digitally created images on live feed video. So it's not more complicated than that. If you talk about virtual reality, that's replacing everything with digitally created images. This is only adding some to it. Okay, so fine. Why is this important? The dream that I personally have is that I would like to get rid of all these paper work instructions and have them replaced with an augmented reality work instruction. I want that work instruction to be created in 20% of the time that it takes today. And I want hardware that is less than $150 per set, so I can furnish that in all my workstations. And you might be thinking, really? Is this necessary? So let me make you another question. Who has bought a TV? Yeah? Okay. Who has bought a DVD? Yeah, okay. Now be honest. Did you read the instructions? No. No, you did not. I did not. Has anybody assembled an IKEA furniture? Yeah? I have. I had the pleasure of doing that. And you know what happens when you try to be smarter than IKEA? It is clear. Right? Oh, crap. Do you think that a production setup is any different? It's exactly the same thing. So you probably have a DVD player at home, but because you never pass page 2, you actually don't know that that DVD player could cook you breakfast. But you never pass page 3, right? So it's the same issue with operators on the show floor. We need to help them doing that. So we are in the process of developing something. What you see here is our first running prototype. We see that we are actually close to the targets that we have set up for ourselves of reducing the time that it takes to work instruction. But what's very interesting is that it dramatically cuts the quality issues that we have seen. When you have a sudden ramp up in production and you need to hire workforce very quickly to be able to keep up with production, these guys, with our products, it takes weeks for them to be proficient, for us to feel confident enough to let them manufacture the products. With this thing, in 2 days, they're up and running. So it's a breakthrough. So I also want to make sure that when you leave here, I don't want people to have the perception, oh, guys, these guys that fix it all, they're done. No, we're not. There's still quite a few questions that need to be answered, okay? So I'm going to leave you with this. Most of us come from expensive countries. And everybody's worried, okay, is my job going to be moved to somewhere cheaper? My statement to you guys is that I think that through technology, we're going to be able to keep these jobs where they are today. They're going to be different, but I think not necessarily the implementation or the creation of new technology, but the adoption of new technology is going to be a differentiator. IT solutions, we have the computer, we have the projector, we have the audio, we have this, we have that. We have so much around there, but they don't talk to each other. You need to create interfaces to make things talk to each other. And the more sensors we get, the more data we get, the more complicated that's going to get. And the last thing is that I personally believe that artificial intelligence is going to be, as it progresses, is going to be entirely changing the landscape of how we do things. We're going to be moving from being completely reactive to being proactive and being able to predict what's going to happen next. Okay? So I'm going to leave you with this in a quote that I personally like from Darwin that says, it's not the strongest that survive, it's the ones that are able to adapt to change. So it's a lot about how fast we can change. It's a lot about how fast we can train the monkeys to go up the ladder. All right? So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for staying awake.
Thank you. That was excellent, and I'm definitely remembering the 4 monkeys.
Yes.
We're a bit short on time.
Yeah.
I'd love to know if you've measured the productivity hikes that you're getting from these innovations. It's not to ask you to tell us what that is, but people sometimes don't do it, and then it doesn't help the rest of the community to say, I can buy into this because I can expect this amount of change.
So,
can you give an indication?
So if anybody wants to talk, I'll be having lunch. I'm just going to give you with a quick fact. We started this roadmap or this journey 3 years ago. At the time, our shares were 1.6. This year, they've reached 8.8 in 3 years. So you can turn it, twist it any way you want to. But at the end of the day, I believe that most of us are working for companies that are interested in the profit. So have we sort of find the cure to cancer? I don't think so. But I think we found a way to be a little bit more profitable. That's the message.
Excellent.
Very good.
Well.
Thank you, guys.